Good afternoon. Um, it's a pleasure to have this this session and trying to present some views I have about this subject. I see some colleagues and friends from the list of participants. My plan for today is that I have some brief presentations of what I have to say about this subject and expect some discussion at the end. I presume you have the possibility of making your questions on the chat forum, and I will try to answer at the end. But I personally would like to have a lively debate about the future of artificial intelligence and learning. Um, this is my, whoops, oh, this works here. Okay. Um, this is my outline. Um, I have some comments about the white paper from the European Commission on Artificial Intelligence, just came out a week ago on the 19th of February. Some messages also from the European Commission on artificial intelligence and education. It's just a working group that they have. Another one on artificial intelligence in education, a systematic review, which is an overview of a large number of publications so far. I will take a little bit about what I think it's a strong possibility with artificial intelligence, which is the assessment of learning outcomes and competences. I will mention what the University of Stanford has in the teaching comments about this issue. And finally, I will talk about something that really motivated me to volunteer to talk about this, which is Chinese experience, Chinese that it's shared with other universities around the world on detecting emotions in learning and then trying to identify what is the degree of perception of learning with the facial recognition and artificial intelligence. And then some personal remarks. And I hope that at the end we will have a debate about what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so let's start with the white paper on artificial intelligence. Like I said, it is a week old. And the motivation for this white paper, I guess, from the European Commission is try to deal with the amount of data that is available, not specifically for education, but in general. But I think it is important to see what context. I know that there are some participants from outside the European Union, but or from Europe, but in a certain way, I think it is interesting to see what are the issues on this subject. Okay, so there are six actions that I transcribed for our presentation. The first one is, let's say, a new coordinated plan to handle artificial intelligence will be ready by the end of 2020. And the second action, which I think is this very important for us in terms of educators and trainers, which is the creation or the facilitation of creation of excellence and testing centers with a private investment, so in collaboration. This, of course, will be a great action which can help lots of higher education institutions to cooperate with private enterprises and companies. And the third action that I would like to present you is to say that the European Commission is willing to work with universities and higher educations to have a large debate on research and practice on artificial intelligence. The fourth is that there will be at least one digital innovation hub on each member state specialized on artificial intelligence, and we'll see what that will bring to each of the member countries in the European Union, and also this idea to combine efforts with the private world, which has a lot of initiatives on artificial intelligence, and try to foster what happens in higher education and other educational institutions. The last, and I think that it's very interesting, I guess, for us, although education here is not a priority, but I hope that we participate on bringing priority to the education sector, is that transparency and dialogue should be fostered. I think that it's very important that we somehow share experiences. And the white paper presents two types of risks and a final proposal, which is the fundamental rights, especially the data, the privacy, because there is a lot of data and we don't know who's using it and how. So this is very important. You know, what is happening with Google and other organizations. The other risk is, let's say, a liable regime where people will be responsible for the use of data and the use of artificial intelligence. So I think this is also very good. And of course, as usual in the European Union, or the European Commission is looking for a regulatory framework that we hope that it will be useful for everyone. Anna has just published the link. It is attached to the slide, so when you have the slide, you can click on it and see where the publication is. It's a long publication, so it's worth taking a look at it. The next topic of my presentation is another work done by the European Commission, which is a working group on the use of artificial intelligence in education. That is from 2018, the summer, and it has some topics that I would like to share with you, which are basically related with some definitions and some questions related. These are the topics that you will find in the paper. As you can see in the top, you can click and find the document. And I personally like the three last ones, which is artificial intelligence in a lifelong learning perspective, how artificial intelligence can, after all, help us achieve the lifelong learning status. The other is solution in solving real needs of education, which I think is also very important. And of course, something that worries me very much, which is the ethics on the use of education, because if we don't have the right principles to use artificial intelligence methods, we will probably have probabilities of having some questions about the use of artificial intelligence in education. One of the things that I know is that, for instance, some countries have already published some principles of using artificial intelligence. You can find them on organization which is the Holland IQ. These people are from Australia, who have a long past of studying the use of artificial intelligence in education. For instance, one of the topics in the last newsletter is that they have identified 50 national artificial intelligence strategies for most of the developed countries in the world, and you can probably take a look and see what's happening in your countries or neighboring countries. But it has a lot of data about the use of artificial intelligence in education. And I repeat the name. I'll write the name of the Australian organization, and you can take a look to check what they are doing. They are also interested in the amount of funds being spent on education, mostly on the education based on technology, and it's a very good source to know what's happening in the world. For instance, one of them is that they have predicted for the education stocks for 268 companies involved in technology, something like 220 billion US dollars worth. So it's a very big business for that. But you take a look. I didn't think, yes, that's the one. And you see that this is something that we educators should take a look, because public universities and even private universities are not paying sufficient attention to this. And this paper, working paper from the European Commission on the key messages has some challenges. For instance, the danger of having bad pedagogical practices done by artificial intelligence, because the problem is that if you have garbage in, then you get garbage out, which is a common statement for many years. And we have to be careful on how we use the artificial intelligence decisions and manipulations of the data, so we don't get bad pedagogical practices. Another one is the simplification of the models of students. I remember, I don't know if you know Pierre Dillenburg from the University of Lausanne, who had, when I visited the studio he had about 20 PhD students trying to identify the behaviors. And this is probably to identify the behaviors in terms of what do they like, what do they see, how they behave, etc. How do they use the books, how many times they were looking at page X in the book Y, and things like that. But this is dangerous, trying to somehow stereotype the learning or the models of students, because humans are very diverse, and it is complicated. Also, the automatic grading based on these assumptions of behavior and profile may be very dangerous. Another challenge for this question is the need for big data. We don't have enough data on student learning. We need more. But of course, again, I insist on the question of privacy and security, and of course, who is using it and what for, and are they entitled to use it? Let me tell you a story, which was not planned, but I think it's very interesting. Everyone knows Coursera, I think. And one of the founders of Coursera, 4 years ago, at the University of Stanford, there was a conference there where I was. He was the keynote speaker. And one of the persons in the audience asked, so what is the business model of Coursera with these cheap MOOCs and courses? And Mr. I think he was a professor, I don't know, Andrew Nagu, NG, he said, our business model is the information. We have, this was 4 years ago, we have 5 terabytes a day of information, and that's our business model. They don't care about students paying for the courses or whatever. It's the information they get from the students. So this is a crucial question that it's in the report of the European Commission on what is a challenge for us, and we have to take that into consideration. The other is the skills for artificial intelligence and its implication. I don't think there are enough courses or training about it. They are used mostly for productivity and medicine, but the use in education in its implications, we probably need new competencies. I wrote skills because that's what it is in the document, but I prefer competence requirements. And the other, of course, we need to establish ethics for artificial intelligence, or like the Commission was saying, the white paper, some kind of regulatory framework. But we need some guidance on how to use this amount of information. Okay. What do they recommend in this paper in terms of policy issues? Like I said before, artificial intelligence for education is just a spill from other areas. And we have to think about it. I'm very concerned that I don't see enough people in Eden, in USEN, in all the educational networks dedicating enough time and research in this area. But of course, there is need for funding and need for support. And this is a problem on the use of artificial intelligence. I think that we have not enough procedures and methods and approaches, not enough research. I think we need more research, more debate, like the one I hope we have in this short webinar. But I think we need to address this. The other is that I think it's probably interesting is the question of besides the ethical, the lack of research and good practice. So we need to somehow pass it around and try to have other possibilities of finding sources. Okay, next topic is this question of this systematic review, which you have available also in the slide. It is the question of the made in this article that was just published by our friend Stephen Downes. I don't know if you received his newsletter. It was just from last week also. All this is very recent. And he published this systematic review. And the final question is very interesting. Where are the educators on this in this problem? There are some people in 3 universities around Europe that tried to identify publications related with this topic. They looked at about 2,500 publications. They selected 146. And they looked at profiling and prediction, which is something that AI can provide. They also looked at assessment and evaluation. That's something that I will stress in the last part of this presentation. And they also looked at something that I've been working for some years, which is the adaptive systems and personalization. I personally think that each person or each learner is one person with a certain type of no, I wouldn't say learning style, but with a certain type of individuality. And I don't think that currently we deal with that in the teaching online or learning online. And of course, the tutoring systems. I'll show you at the end something that the Chinese are doing and would probably be interesting to you. Okay, so 3 conclusions from this systematic review, which I think are relevant. Lack of critical reflection on risks and challenges, weak connection to pedagogical theories, again, research and investment on research, and exploration of ethical and educational approaches. So, meaning that this is something that was extracted from these 150 pages. Of course, I also looked, and now to underline the question of assessment, because to understand learning, you have to evaluate them. You have to do it in a proper way. And assessment is the way to do it. Again, this is another area where I think there has not been enough research and established methods to do this assessment of the learning. because I don't know how much you are involved with quality, but one of the principles I've learned, I'm an engineer, and one of the principles I've learned is that if you cannot measure, you cannot improve. So if you don't measure the learning, you cannot improve what you do. You're just hoping that it will work. Um, and I hope that you can how do I say? I hope that you can um, think about this about assessment, and I'll talk briefly about it. For instance, GISC, which you know is the research center in the UK, for 2025 wants to have 5 targets. The assessment to be authentic, to be real, so looking at the person, accessible with the use of technology, automated appropriately with something that I've learned throughout my 40 something years of teaching, which is the correct feedback. I cannot do adaptive, but I can do some feedback, and that's very important for the learner. That's something that it is recommended. The other is continuous. Of course, the artificial intelligence can help with analyzing uh, the analytics and the digital qualifications. And of course, it has to be secure. It has to be uh, the person that we are assessing should be the one that is answering the assessment. And of course, it's recommended online invigilation and data forensics, which I know some techniques. For instance, the apparently the way you hit the keyboard is personal. It's like the digital print. No, there are not two persons that use the keyboard the same way. So that's something that is being used in some places. So that is something that GISC is recommending to do. I have also another input that I would like to show you, which is a tool that is available on the web that it's trying to align the learning outcomes with the assessment. Effectively, when we do the assessment, we don't look at the type of learning outcomes. And this is a tool that was devised on a project that you can consult and use the web tool. It's public. And what does it do? Um, it is relevant for determining the skills and competencies. Of course, it can be used on the recognition so that they will be accredited and certified, but it's mostly focusing on the students, which is something that it has to change in most of the uh, teaching and learning around the higher education. And believe me, it's not a simple problem. When we used, and you can see the theoretical background to align the learning outcomes with the assessment, it's not a simple problem. And the way it was used at the time was to use some kind of decision theory, automated decision theory. But I guess that we have to pursue this alignment between the learning outcomes and assessment using artificial intelligence to find the proper way of assessing each type of learning outcome. This is a simple image of the tool that is available. Of course, it's just an advice, not black and white, and you can just take a look at it and see what's going on. Now, let's see what University of Stanford has published and is using. University of Stanford has a webpage that is very useful for those that are interested in teaching and learning, which is called Teaching Commons, and it has a specific topic on the use of artificial intelligence and assessment. For instance, one of their tools that they use is that they have a software system to infer some specific rules for automated scoring using what instructor is using generally in their assessments. And one of the things of the assessment, I have to tell you, I coordinated a special subject group in a project called Kalohi, and I was in charge of the engineering one. And one of the things I noticed is that assessing is something very personal. Each professor has its own way of grading, and it's very personal and very emotional. If you try to tell a professor that he should use uh, another type of assessment, you have to be careful and be ready for sometimes some emotive feedbacks and answers. It was not easy. My experience is not at all easy to have consensus about how to do the assessment. So this is something that Stanford is doing. I presume that it's for each type of instructor they have their own rules because each professor uses its own. But I think artificial intelligence, like it's mentioned, it will help the instructor to evaluate in a way that it's fair and rational. These rules about the grading decisions. So some experiences have been done in Stanford to mathematics, to programming, and also to essays, which is something that it's universal and can be used in different contexts. But I think that you probably can take a look at about that later. So these are the strengths according to the teaching comments: efficiency, consistency. And I think that the consistency is something that it's very necessary when we want a fair judgment of what the students are learning. And of course, this will be just a part of the assessment process, and the intervention of the instructor has to be done in the most fair way, so people can have the right grade, because grading is a game about what the students are looking for. They want sometimes the grade to pass and get the scholarship. Let's see if we can get artificial intelligence done and have transparency, especially on what is done. There is a comment here about consistency and fairness. I don't know what the definitions, and looking at the definition of consistency and fairness, it's probably something that the grader, at least with me, when I'm grading 100 papers, when I get to the end, I'm not probably consistent on what you've done in the beginning, and that's not fair, because you get tired, you get probably, how do I say, affected by what you have seen, and you sometimes change your rules when you are at the end. And the point of the teaching commons is that if it is used artificial intelligence, probably used consistently from the beginning to the end. Okay, let's go then for what is being done in China. And as far as I know, I have here to have the experience that they have with the University of Berkeley and MIT, I guess. But they have been using it since 2017. It's called Smart Classroom Behavior Management System. If you take a look, what they are doing in the classroom is that they have several cameras, and the cameras detect or try to identify with artificial intelligence, with facial recognition, what are the emotions of the students in the classroom. And they scan it every 30 seconds, and they can detect if they are happy, confused, angry, surprised, fearful, or disgusted. The last publication I've seen about this method is that they can identify nine emotions. And what are these emotions for? With the decision making they have, they related with the let's say the learning of the student. If they need support, And according to this last publication that I've seen, it implies a certain, how do I say, a certain degree of success in identifying people, students with problems, that it's about 80%, which is very useful for a teaching aid. So they can detect those that are with problems and try to help them to learn. So I also have here a quote from one of the students that it is like there are a pair of mystery eyes constantly watching me, and I don't dare let my mind wander. Uh, you take it as it is. I always remember and I agree with Jack, it's a little bit totalitarian, but this is what is being done. I'm not saying that it's good or it is bad. It is what it's being done. So that's why the ethical concerns of the papers that have been published and other situations, but we have to be careful. This exists, and like I said, it's being done with universities in the United States, at least two that I know, and also helps them to understand if the teachers are doing well or not. I have a video that I hope that Anna can, or Dora can pass the video if it is possible before I go to my first comment. Okay, so it ends with a question that I hope that we can talk about. And can I see my final remark slide? Okay, well, okay, thank you. I think it's promising in education, like I said, specifically for the assessment. Also for intelligent tutoring and mentoring that can also, I remember participating in a project which was trying to design a new type of profession in the e-learning environment or the online environment, which was a facilitator, the person that would follow each student and try to facilitate the participation in the conference, trying to, how do I understand, favor the performance of each learner. And artificial intelligence can be a facilitator for that following up and tutoring persons in need. For me, it seems interesting for the assessment. Understanding reactions. As a matter of fact, this is something that I do in my classes. I identify some of the students that are probably not understanding what I'm saying, and then I address them privately, etc. So this facial recognition and identification of reactions, maybe it's not so bad, at least if the data and like I said, the questions are not used in in a very interesting or useful way in terms of preserving the privacy and ethical principles. But it is something that I do as a teacher. Probably you do it also. You try to understand the reaction. So if a machine does it for me, that's fine. It probably does it even better than I do. I don't know. That's something we have to understand. My last remark on this subject is that decisions and rules have to be led by humans. That's something that I think it's fundamental, and I hope that we keep that in mind. And finally, just to close my intervention, try to participate in the Eden Next conference. The topic is precisely artificial intelligence in learning in Timisoara in the 20th of June to 23rd of June. So try to participate and get involved. If you don't go to the conference, at least get involved with the Eden initiatives on this subject and try to enrich the use of artificial intelligence, and probably try to avoid some of the concerns that have been expressed by some of the participants in using facial recognition and other artificial intelligence tools in a improper way. Okay, so I have plenty of comments on the chat. Let's see what I can take from here. I don't. Let's start with let's go up. Sorry. First one is from Connor Galvin from Dublin. Could be. I mean, the idea of having this artificial intelligence identifying our failures can be used to improve the teaching techniques. I don't know. It's if you, let's say, we have this theory of the call theory of the learning styles and the teaching techniques. If there are students who have a learning style that it's the bad, or it's not adapted to the way we teach, maybe we can identify, for instance, their learning styles using artificial intelligence, maybe, and we can try to diversify or adapt some of the teaching to the people in the room or the people that are attending the online courses. I don't know. I believe in the adaptive, for instance, assessment. I think that we cannot assess the same way in the same way with the different types of learning from the students or the learners. We cannot use the same assessment technique. Maybe we have to use more difficult questions for the people that are more capable, and those that are, let's say, less capable, try to use other types. Because I think in the assessment, what we have to do is what the students know, not what they don't know. So we have to see what they know and adapt the grades or the teaching to what they know. There's a subsequent question of using formative, of course. That's where the assessment can be the formative assessment can be very useful to try to create, how do I say this, this type of teaching. I would say for Anna Cristina, it depends. We do the surveillance. If you in the room, you look at the students, you see if they learn or if they don't learn, and if they don't participate. That's what we do. I wouldn't be very worried about this surveillance as long as the results of the surveillance are properly used and used ethically and respecting the privacy of each student. That's my answer. And the AI could help a student on its own. I think it is because you can make the diagnosis of what is the student performance. That's what we do, and develop a personal development plan for each of the students. And I wouldn't be too worried. Again, we have to study the ethics and principles of using these artificial intelligence tools. So they are not scary. They are not totalitarian. They are not invading the privacy of people. But that's what we have to research. And that's what it was not found, for instance, in the systematic review. It was not found in the working group of the European Commission on their key messages, and that's our fault. I'm sorry, but that's our fault as teachers and trainees to not research and debate enough this issue. Okay, could the example you showed was, let me see, from Adnan Qayyum, was, let me see if I can read the total question, because what I'm seeing here is something, there is just a part of the question. So there's plenty of interventions, which is very good. I think this has motivated, yeah, the example was in China. Yeah, but I don't know if other countries are using it, to be honest. It's what I found. So let me follow the other questions. Cecilia Thomas, no, before there's another one. I'm sorry, but yeah, you're not sure. I'm not sure either. So, so we should guarantee that at least in the universities or public environments, this is guaranteed. So I cannot, how do I say, control, and you cannot, and the professors cannot control what happens in the majority of EdTech. Like my friend from Coursera, he's using it. He's using the information for his business model. To be honest, I don't know what they do with it. He didn't tell, but it was his business model. Now, what can we do? At least use it in the public sector, or the ones that we are controlling. May we use it in a proper way? So that would be my suggestion. We can work on how do I say, we can do what we can in our sphere of action. We cannot, but we can publish. We can make our voice heard, and try to express the concerns about these issues. From IRL, you don't have the confidence, as it's probably something that I know from algorithms. They always perform the same way. So if we make a neutral algorithm, it will work neutrally for all its life. But that's our role. Like I said here, decisions and rules have to be led by humans. It's our role to decide that they are proper. And they will be neutral, because as long as we make them neutral, they will not think on their own. I don't believe machines. Although one of the books I'm learning is precisely on the master algorithm, that it's precisely about machine learning and the capacities of engineering, knowledge engineering, data and treatment that can change a lot of things in the world. But so far, I don't think machines can learn by themselves. It's us that tell them how to progress in their own procedures, and of course that's what we should do. Kevin, of course the assessment, like I said, and that's why I mentioned it, the assessment has to be adequate, but again, we have to do it. It's us that have to do it, and artificial intelligence algorithms will just do what we think it's appropriate and proper. But I'm concerned, my message today is that we are not doing enough research. We are not making opinion articles and papers and policies public, and we should. And that's my message. I'm not saying that everything is okay. It's not, but we have to do more, and that's something that that is not correct. And we have here from XAV, emotions is culture. Of course, our emotion is cultural dependent. That's what they do in China. I don't know what they do in Azerbaijan or in Portugal or in the United States, and that is something that it can be done. I'm not saying to use what the algorithm that the Chinese are using. We have to develop. We have to study that. It's to see if it's useful or not. I don't even know if it is useful. I'm just presenting the case for you to be aware and think about it. What else do we have? The algorithm needs to integrate other issues. Of course, we make the algorithm in the room, so it is something that has to be done. Now, Kevin asks if we have to change the way we assess. No, because as you've seen, for instance, for what is being done in Stanford, it's precisely the opposite. The rules are made by the grader. The artificial intelligence learns from the grading of the instructor, and they develop the algorithms to perform the assessment. And I don't know if I'm missing something, but because the chats that show up here are not, I don't know if they are inclusive, let's say, if I have all the questions, to be honest. If I'm missing something, please do it again, and I'll try to comment. But I'm very happy that there were so many comments and so many, how do I say, lively interventions, which is very good for the subject, and I think it's necessary. So please get involved. Please do something. I'm very concerned of what is being done without the participation and the influence of proper instructors and proper professors. So we'll see what happens. But we are the actors. We are here, and my perspective, like it's being published by the Systematic Review, where are the educators? So show up and work on it. But my point is, don't put it away, because like I said, information is being used, and I don't know it's being used, and we have to participate, and we have to do something. So keep in touch. I don't know if there is any others, any other recent comments, and let's see if you participate. Show up in Eden. If you don't show up, there are virtual participations in Eden, and there are very interesting groups, and Cecilia is doing a work on this. Just publish your PhD conclusions and research, but don't, how do I say, don't look the other way. Just try to understand and use using this, and you don't have to thank me. I think I'm addressing a very important issue for the future, and you have a role. So try to do what you can. Don't step back. Don't say it's not going to be used. It's being used. Like I said, the guy from Coursera, he was honest about it. We just use the information, and I'm sure that they don't treat 5 terabytes of information a day just by looking at it. They have artificial intelligence looking, either if it is learning analytics, either if it is knowledge engineering, if it is machine learning, they are using it. So we that are here just have to think about it and try to work together, because It is a dangerous times from my point of view with this use of information, and we have to do something. Education, as you know, is the one that it's bringing the future for the young and adult learners. We have to shape the education. Let me tell you a story. Since there are no questions or people are thanking, I don't think you have to thank. But my knowledge is about a friend that is now at UNESCO, um, and he once came into a conference some years ago and was very upset. He made his presentation, and at the end, he made his, his, his intervention saying that he was coming from Japan, and he was seeing some initiatives in Japan to produce, how do I say, ships that would contain information. So kind of knowledge, chips that could be inserted in the nervous system of people and could be like Encyclopedia Britannica or something else, I don't know. The chips could contain as much information as possible, according to him. And of course, the problem was that the quality of the information that was produced and placed in the ship could condition the knowledge of that person. And this is dangerous also. This is not just artificial intelligence, but it's related with the ethical issues. And if we don't use the right ethical principles, we have no future from my point of view as humanity. So we really have to be concerned and do something about it. I know I have 8 minutes, but I don't have probably nothing more interesting to say. And you don't have to thank me. I thank you all for intervening and for bringing subjects, because we really have to address this issue from my point of view to back better education and specifically better learning. That's what I've been dedicating lots of my time, and I'm very interested in having people more educated and better learning. So I'll do what I can. What I did today was just to bring what I aware and try to bring your attention. I think I think I managed. So I'm happy today. I have learned something that I think that I could motivate some people to get into this subject. So I don't have anything else to say unless you ask some provocative question. Okay, so like I said, participate, go to Eden conference, and keep in touch either with me or with the people in Eden or with the colleagues that were participating, and let's do something to improve the learning and the education. Thank you. Bye bye.